The Spurs and the city of San Antonio are on a collision course. The recent talks the Spurs have started about building a new arena and stadium downtown, I think, will ultimately decide the fate of the Spurs staying in San Antonio. My name is Chris, and this is Spurs Alley.
Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, 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 yeah, go, go.
Now, the Spurs, to begin with, could have been gone a long time ago. And I'm not talking about the days when they were in the ABA and were miraculously allowed to continue in the NBA. I'm not talking about the time when the owner, Red McCombs at the time, was selling the Spurs, and somehow a group of businessmen from San Antonio, the whole family came together and were able to buy the Spurs. I'm talking about the time in 1999 when Bexar County officials had to step in because the city had already said no, and they proposed a tax on tourists, let's say, because they would have an extra tax on hotels and the rental car industry to where it would pay for the AT&T Center. It did pass, and the AT&T Center was built. The problem was that it was built in the east side and not downtown. And look at this video. Look how there is nothing around the AT&T Center. There's just this big golf course across the street, a lot of housing, and look how far away the downtown skyline is of San Antonio. It's just so far away from downtown. It really isn't an ideal spot to put the AT&T Center. Fast forward to now, and things are looking eerily similar. Think about it. We just drafted a generational talent in Victor Wembanyama, and back in those days, we had just drafted Tim Duncan. Actually, I just won the championship with Tim Duncan. So that is also a lot of the excitement that was around. Another thing is that Spurs, at that time, they didn't like playing in the Alamo Dome. Yes, it was downtown, but it was a dome cut in half with a curtain for the Spurs to play in. And now they don't like the AT&T Center, but not because of the place, but because of where it's located in the east side. Also, back then, the city didn't want to pay for a new stadium for the Spurs, and that seems to be the same type of climate that we're in right now. They're not really willing to put up the money for the new arena. Last time, things worked out, but will things stay the same? What we do know is that the Spurs, they definitely want this downtown arena / baseball stadium for the San Antonio Missions. It's not going to be an easy path. What's it going to take to make it a reality? The AT&T Center currently isn't a bad arena. Even at its age of 20 years plus, there's still only 9 other teams in the NBA that have an arena that's newer than the Spurs. The building is still in really good shape inside and out. It was actually just renovated for $100 million plus in 2015. If you've ever been to a Spurs game, it's really fun. It's an exciting atmosphere. The H-E-B fan zone, that's a great spot if you're able to get a seat. First come, first serve, grab a beer. It's still really fun. Former County Judge Nelson Wolff also had something to say about the AT&T Center and the Spurs' future plans. Quote, "That makes absolutely no fucking sense. The AT&T Center is a very good arena." Now, San Antonio is in need of some downtown economic stimulation. And thinking about it, a downtown arena with a baseball stadium next door sounds really, really exciting. We have the shops, restaurants, bars, already lighting up the Riverwalk. So it would just make the Spurs game experience just that much more entertaining. However, some sacrifices will have to be made. Sources say potential sites include the Alamo Dome and its massive surrounding parking lots, the Institute of Texan Cultures at the southeast corner of Hemisphere, and possibly several hundred apartment buildings built by developers with Opportunity Home San Antonio, formerly known as SAHA, the housing authority. The Spurs actually still have a lease for the next 9 years at the AT&T Center. Not to mention that the Eastside residents, they're also speaking up about the unfulfilled promise of an economic boost to the area that the AT&T Center was told to them it would bring. Absolutely nothing has changed in that neighborhood in 20 years. It's no coincidence that the Spurs and the Missions are doing this in a joint effort, since owners from the Spurs also have shares for the Missions. They truly believe that they have to have a stadium downtown for them to capitalize on their investment. That way they can keep up with all the modern stadiums in all the major cities. The Warriors just recently moved into a $1 billion arena that was actually self-funded. What the Spurs are thinking about could easily be a $1 billion facility. That just seems too far-fetched for a city like San Antonio. San Antonio doesn't have corporate sponsors like the way teams do in San Francisco. Instead of taxpayer money being used to fund projects that directly benefit its residents, this arena will have to be subsidized for the Spurs owners. If we look at the current ownership group, the Holt family doesn't own the Spurs the way let's say the Steinbrenners own the Yankees at 70%, or even the Buss family owns the Lakers at 66%. To get a better understanding of the Spurs ownership, let's take a look at who they are. Starting off with the good, coming in as the majority owners is the Holt family. They own more than 40%, and they became the largest shareholder in 1996. Also part of the good is our own David Robinson. He actually owns 1.89% of the team. And rounding off the good guys is San Antonio businessmen Richard and Raul Cantu, each with 0.82% of ownership. So that's the good. These are the owners that I really don't have any worries about. We know about the Holt family. David Robinson loves San Antonio, and the Cantus, they have been longtime Spurs investors. So those are the owners that I have no worries about. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the bad. Now coming in at a whopping 20% is private equity firm 6th Street Partners. Next in line with 10% ownership is Michael Dell from Austin, the owner of Dell Computers. And rounding out the bad is Paul Vieta from the Atlanta-based Ernest Partners investment firm, San Antonio's Kimberly Lewis, also managing partner of her investment firm, and Joe Gebbia, the Airbnb co-founder and billionaire. For Paul Vieta, Kimberly Lewis, and Joe Gebbia, we don't know how much they actually own. Now finishing off with the ugly, let's take a look at who they are. Here we have James Leininger, a San Antonio billionaire that made his money with a wound care company. He actually owns 8.7% of the Spurs. Next, we have faceless Valero Energy Corp and financial services company SWBC. Both of these companies, we don't know how much they own. And finally, we have Bruce and Russell Hill. Brothers Bruce is actually one of the founders of Designated Bidders, the group that bought the San Antonio Missions back in 2022, along with Russell, and we also don't know how much they own. So if you've done the math, you can tell that 6th Street Partners and Michael Dell own a big chunk of the Spurs. Also, don't forget that just recently we started playing more games in Austin, which actually upset a few of the Spurs fans and started a lot of the Spurs want to move rumors. Now, if the owners that don't have any ties to San Antonio, if they all team up, I mean, they're going to have as much ownership as the whole family. So if the group from the ugly, which to me is really the unknowns, if they decide to collude with the bad, the city of San Antonio really is in trouble. We can have a guy like James Leininger decide the fate of the Spurs. And I mean, look at this guy. Do you trust him? Look at this guy's face. I don't trust this guy one bit. So now that we went over the history, the situation, and the owners, what does that mean for the future of the Spurs in San Antonio? This is all just in its preliminary stages. They've just recently started talking about this, so we really don't have anything to worry about right now. We actually have a lot to look forward to. I mean, a lot of cities would love to be in our position, with a rich history of winning, Hall of Fame players with great character, and a new generational talent surrounded by a good group of young guys. But with the recent news of the Spurs wanting this new sports complex, I can't help but feel like a 4-year ticking time bomb has been started. Cities, sports teams, they've long had a tenuous history of negotiations involving the building of new stadiums and arenas, but many teams we thought would never move made the change. What I anticipate happening is the Spurs, they're going to make a big push when Wemby's contract, his rookie contract, is finishing up. They might even start leaking stories that Wemby's looking to move if the Spurs don't get a new arena for his worldly talents. But what if the Spurs aren't where they need to be in the rebuild process? How much is that going to affect public opinion? Will the whole family be pressured to sell if they think that the AT&T Center is no longer a viable option for long-term success? I mean, there's cities like, right now, Austin, and even the G League, they have a team in Mexico City. I mean, Mexico City would love to have an NBA team. I don't think this is going to go away. And if for some reason we're able to avoid from the bomb exploding, then we should feel pretty good about the Spurs never leaving San Antonio. However, if that bomb does explode, who knows what the aftermath is going to be. Thank you so much for joining me today and watching Spurs Alley episode number 4. I sincerely appreciate it. If you like Spurs content, consider subscribing. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. I'll make sure to catch you on the next one.